Hello. Try not to pay too much attention to the King of the Hill gameplay in the background. This was just a little test that Matt ended up throwing up shortly after the update. It was just something to check out whatever needs to be fixed before game modes can actually be added into the game. Just because I'm showing it right now does not mean that they're over the horizon or close. It was just a short little test, and I was online at the right moment just to, well, be able to have fun with it. So, I ended up asking in the last video if anyone wanted or was interested in the bit of Rhamph footage I had from before the update, since it was actually quite funny. And I had a couple of people actually respond yes, so here it is. Quite a short little intro. Not usually me, I usually ramble a lot more. But then, again, here's me rambling about the fact that I'm rambling. Oh well. But, with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoy. So, to start out, how about something a little simple? Maybe a little bit of thievery. So, there's quite a lot of stuff in Crater right here. There's Kentro, Baby Dasp, there's a duck in the water, there's an aloe, and well, of course, there's a Rex, and they seem to have gotten a trophy not too long ago. I ended up dying to a Rex earlier, so I guess I gotta cheer my spirits up somehow. So I hop on, and as you would expect, they start bucking immediately. They know what I want is either to plague them and just make their lives harder, or I want that trophy. I'll take either at this point, but I think the easier would definitely be the trophy. With enough annoyance, they will probably eventually try to bite me on the dismount, but weirdly they didn't. They were very consistent with actually just resisting dropping that trophy. They really, really wanted it. Now, I could give up here, knowing that, well, they know that if they drop the trophy, I'm going to grab it. But I thought, meh, if they're going to resist, I'm at least going to make them pay for it with their hunger, as they'll probably end up logging after this. But then I end up seeing these scars and thinking, wait, is this Rex hurt? When I ended up checking the replay, they weren't, but yeah. But every cycle of pouncing, unlatching, getting stamina, and going back to pounce, they're getting closer and closer to the cave. And they still refuse to drop the trophy. I kind of respect it. So there's probably half a cycle's worth of distance left to the cave, until, well, they got what they want. So I go for one last pounce, and they do something weird. They actually drop the trophy. I'm assuming that it was for a bait for an easy hit, which they ended up getting. Though, they did not account for Lucky Feather. And the fact that they're a Rex, they are going to one-shot me and activate it. And, of course, we've got to leave the cave, and we've got to say thank you, because, well, they gave us the trophy, and they knew it belonged to us. That's why, subconsciously, they wanted to try and drop it and just put it in my reach. All trophies belong to the Rhamphs, you know. Everyone else is just keeping them warm. You can disagree and have that opinion, but you will have to accept that you have the wrong opinion. Objectively. I don't make the rules. Dennis does. So for this one, I'm flying around Grand Plains, and I can see there's a couple of things around here. There's a Suko questing, there's an aloe eating, there's some Struthies I hear in the distance. I also saw a young Spino and Rex in the distance. But there's also something a little peculiar. There are two Rexes crouch walking around trying to get use out of their surprise attack passive. So I pounce one of them, wondering if they'll actually start bucking and giving up their location by making noise from bucking me off. But surprisingly they didn't. They're just letting me sit here, which is kind of a golden ticket for me. So, as they are walking towards where the aloe was eating, a start making a little bit of noise just to warn the aloe that, hey, there's something coming right here. And they were a little slow on actually getting away. But either way, these Rexes only really got one chunk of meat. Which is fine in my books. It'll take a little while, maybe like 12 minutes for me to starve them out if they do not actually buck me off. And with how calm they're being, I might even be willing to actually buff them if an actual fight happens, seeing as, well, they're not really resisting the plague, so therefore they should get at least a little bit of reward, like some extra damage if they get into a fight. Though, this all comes at the cost of their hunger. But out of nowhere, they just start bursting into a sprint. And the reason is that in the distance, they've spotted a smaller Rex than them, having a little squabble with an aloe and a megalania. And so seeing one of their own kind in, well, as I said, a squabble, they come in an attempt to save the day. Still not bucking me off, and losing hunger at 5 times the rate that they should be. Let's just say, they even go ahead and just sit down, with a Rhamph on their side, a megalania watching in the distance, and they are slowly starving out. Well, actually, I guess you can't say slowly. A Rhamph, if you don't buck it off, and you are a Rex, it will take your 60-minute hunger timer down to 12 minutes. Though, in this case, if they do actually get a proper fight, I would be willing to actually buff up their damage to make it a little bit easier, since they've been so well behaved. But now here is something that could concern some people. Now, you remember the Rex that they tried to help from the Aloe and Meg? Well, they end up spotting a small Spino with it, and so they rush towards it, thinking, oh yeah, we finally got something we can eat and we can catch quite easily. And so they start running towards it, but then are stopped by the small Rex as if, well, hey, that might be their friend, I guess. And the reason why they haven't attacked, I guess, is that they don't want to kind of betray this Rex that they've already tried to help. And so they rest for a few seconds, try to get some stamina, and, well, they start following once again. They've been plagued for 5 minutes so far, and I'm sure their hunger wasn't full beforehand anyway. So I'm sure they're getting probably a little bit low. And so they end up looking at me for a second. And I think they're asking, hey, can you buff me? And I think, you know what, why not? So they end up looking at this small Rex and Spino, waiting for me to buff them, before then going in for an attack. My thought process right here is that I am hoping for the smaller Rex's survival right now. As, well, I do want to starve out these 2 Rexes. But if I start, not slightly contributing a little bit in the Rex's eyes, then they might start bucking me off and making this a little bit harder. And so the chase is on. The Rex ends up actually getting away, and so these two end up just settling for the baby Spino. But here's a funny thing. It's only worth 1 chunk of meat for them. There was also a small duck that was very lucky to make it out alive. But as I said, that little baby Spino was only worth 1 chunk of meat for each of them. And so they have actually been taking health damage from starvation. And so they decide to start waddling towards Crater. They're at about 3/4 health right now, both of them. And so the Green Rex ends up running north of the entrance of Crater, and trying to go after the small Rex that they had already attacked, in hope that, hey, they are desperate for food right now as they're starving. And the Rex that I am currently pounced to, they end up going down the ramp of Crater, in order to see if there was anything worthwhile for them to go after. In which, as you could guess, there isn't. There was a Trike, a Stego, and an Amaga down there. All 3 together, there is a lot to go through, especially when you're already taking health damage from starvation. Hell, there was even a Tyrannotitan down there, and after taking a little peek, they decided to take their chances back in Grand Plains in hopes of finding an alpha critter to kill. But, at this point now, they are actually at half health. And as they start to get a little deeper into Grand Plains again, I start seeing the marks appear. They are officially getting very low and close to death. But here's something that's a little bit annoying to me. A Latin ended up showing up, but not only that. There was also then a Pycno and a Metri. And so, before this conflict properly started, the Green Rex ended up killing their partner in order for a little bit of food, in order to help them actually survive or last throughout an entire fight with what they're about to go up against. Now, the reason I actually got a little bit annoyed right here is that, well, I was doing this. I don't like that other people came into this. I wanted to, do this alone and be the sole cause, but hey, it's Grand Plains and Crater before the update. So, you do have to just accept that, well, there was just so much traffic here beforehand. And so after a bunch of kicks from the Latin, building up bleed, charges from the Pycno, trading out their cracked scoots for basic hits, and little nips from the Metri, well, I decided might as well just use Scab Picker and finish off this Rex, as they would just be cycled over and over by a charging Pycno and a Metri healing it, all while the Latin is just keeping it bleeding and stopping it from healing. But for my patience and my trouble and time spent in this, I grab my prize and fly off towards Desolate, feeling slightly robbed of glory from actually starving out both those Rexes down to nothing. But, either way, I did most of the work. The Red Rex was around 15% health before they ended up actually getting attacked and killed by their partner, and the Green Rex was at around 25% health. It was just a matter of time. And so here we are at the end. As the dust is still settling from this update and people are actually trying to find their spot that they want to be, there's still quite a lot of people who are still glued to Grand Plains and Crater right now. Well, more so Grand Plains. Since Crater, well, there's no water there, right? So, learning where people are actually enjoying being right now, and then actually trying to get any good footage from it, it's a little bit more difficult to adjust to than I thought it would be, but in a very good way. Everything that I've encountered so far has been way more organic, and way more natural, like you actually come across someone while traveling. But it's just a little bit more difficult, which is fine. Let me know how your encounters have been, actually traveling around the map if you do that, or what zones are you all going to? I know everyone has been saying that, hey, Green Valley is where everyone's gonna go because there's the Waystone there, right? But have a look at Green Hills. I say Green Hills because, well, there's a home cave there, there's a Waystone there, and there's loads of water. It kind of sounds like a perfect hotspot to me. The only real problem some people may have is line of sight, since, hey, there's a load of hills, there's a forest right next to it, but other than that, it's weird. It has everything that a hotspot would want. And yet, weirdly, it's not the main hotspot over Green Valley. Let me know how your encounters have been with this update. But anyway, with all that out of the way, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye!